This is Business Morning on Channels Television. We're now being joined by Obiora Madu. He is a non-oil export consultant. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Okay, we've seen a lot of development in the non-oil export sector, the non-oil sector in general, and in the reports that was released by the National Bureau of Statistics, the contribution of the non-oil sector seems to remain stable. What's your take on that?
Well, I guess the issue is that we are matching on the same spot. We haven't done a lot to improve the non-oil export level. So that's the major challenge. The commodities production still remains at the same level. Not much has changed in terms of export culture. Not much has changed in terms of incentives. Not much has changed in terms of competitiveness, which is a major issue in the international market. So these are the issues.
Why are these things the way they are? Or why have there been no changes?
Well, you know that our strength right now is in the agro-commodity sector. The real sector is practically not working, so you can't really talk so much about exporting in the manufacturing sector. Now, for example, at the time that Michelin closed down, they were exporting tires to 26 countries. But of course, it's closed down and we lost that opportunity of the foreign exchange. So I think we need to totally re-engineer our non-oil export sector. I can see a lot of activities in agriculture. And since that is where our strength is right now, maybe we'll be able to take advantage of the supply gaps that exist between certain commodities. But I think also that we need to be strategic. I'll give you an example. The shea nut, which is essentially a tropical product, Nigeria produces 60% of the world's share. And if you go on the export market, you will see Ghana, you see Burkina Faso, you see the rest of them. We are the largest producer of a couple of products, but not listed on the export side of those products. So I think from the government circle, they need to make the playing field a little bit easier to exporters. People are just barely managing to do business.
When you say easier, is it that they're not providing the needed facilities to promote export? We've seen activities of governments at various levels to provide some kind of intervention fund to assist exporters, agriculture to grow. Isn't this working?
I think we need more incentives. Let me be specific, because elsewhere in the world they talk about basket of incentives. Of all the non-oil export incentives that are available in Nigeria, in 1986, when the commodity boards were scrapped and then the non-oil sector was liberalized, 12 incentives were listed. But as we speak, only one incentive is working, and that is the Export Expansion Grant. There were incentives that were there just to help the newcomers to be able to get their feet. Things like training, things like business plan, things like part sponsorship of international trips to negotiate for business and the rest of them. All those are not there. So I think that we need to change our attitude to incentives. The reason is that from the public sector, people see incentive as a waste. Elsewhere in the world, if the people give incentive, they look at, assuming that 30% of the incentive we were given have given result. Instead of looking at the 70% that failed, they look at the multiplier implication of the 30% that worked.
No. Excuse me, we'll be getting back to the issue of the export expansion grant. But one thing I would like to know is it that the non-oil sector hasn't in any way impacted the economy, despite the challenges that is being encountered in that sector?
No, I mean, it has impacted. I mean, obviously makes contribution. But you know, from your first question, what you said is that it's like stagnant. And if we go back to independence, of course, you can. If you look at what it was at independence, then right now you can say that it's practically contributing nothing, because it was up to 93% of the total foreign exchange generation in Nigeria. And I don't see what much has happened that will make it impossible for us to at least move it up to a reasonable level. The contribution, it is contributing, but we're saying that it could contribute more if we have a more coordinated approach towards the whole thing.
Let's get back to the issue of export expansion grants. One of the things that you say is just working out of the other issues that were not working. I was able to hear from the Minister of Trade and Investment just a few weeks ago, because there's been a challenge with export grants. I've spoken to a number of people, and they say that the government is not assisting them in providing export grants for local manufacturers. But it seems that the Minister of Trade has come out to say that the government is aware of this challenge and they're going to see to it. Has there been any form of intervention since that time to this time?
Well, I guess it's still in the drawing board as usual. You know, the pain is for the operators. The people in the public sector do not feel that pain. I'm glad with what the Minister of Trade and Investment is doing. It's a lot of activities, but I think we need to start seeing the impact of that activities on the businesses of people who want to go into
How does
export.
that translate into the businesses of people? Because left to the federal government, they give you a blueprint, they try to put some money in there for those who are in that kind of business. And why is it not getting to people like you who are in the business?
Well, let's look at the export expansion grant and how it works. How it works is that you export products. There are ranges from raw to semi-processed, and then the manufactured. There are percentages of what you get after you have repatriated export process. It's usually a percentage of what you get. People are complaining that they are not getting it on time. That's a different ballgame altogether. And a whole lot of other issues surrounding it, that if people could at least get it on time. Because you see, someone can get into exports basically to take advantage of the incentives. I mean, your starting transaction, even if it's at a break-even level, at least let's say it's 10% or 20% that you were looking forward to getting from the export expansion grant, that would be enough for you to say, to take the risk. So incentives is supposed to be one of the major things that drive people into export. But I think we need to, export expansion grant aside, I think there should be also a lot more incentive. Like I said, we had 12 listed when it started, but let's revisit it and see if we can get a couple of them to work, because there are a lot of people out there, a lot of new people who want to go into export and all that, but when they look at when you look at the numbers, it doesn't look good. And of course, part of the reason why the numbers are not looking good is not just because of incentive, it's also because of infrastructure. The impact of infrastructure on competitiveness is a major issue. Let's say, for example, you go to Katsina, you buy ginger, put it on the truck, then you pay all the little money and multiple uniform people that are on the road and the rest of the things. Then, of course, you stand the risk of if you have loaded in a container, of the container falling as a result of bad road, and if that happens, forget that transaction. You have already made a loss. So, and then a lot of other things that are pursuing people. So, we need to take a holistic view of the whole thing. Incentives is only part. If you ask those who are in commodity business, they will tell you that at one time during the season of almost every commodity, the local price is higher than the international market price. So, I mean, you don't have a monopoly of those commodities, so how do you beat those who are supposed to be competing with you? So okay. I think that I think it was 2 years ago when Americans were complaining about jobs, all the jobs going to India and the rest of them because of outsourcing. And Obama initiated what he called the Obama Export Initiative. And the objective was to bring jobs back to America. 2 years down the line, a lot of jobs are back to America. So maybe also we should be thinking of a good luck export initiative.
Okay.
That will help us to take a second look at the whole thing and have a coordinated approach, and then we can get results.